So Ryan, we're still talking about PDF and workflow optimization and the white paper that you created at Keypoint. And one of the things we found in reading through it is that it turns out that optimization is great, but it also contributes to the overall workflow efficiency. And I wondered if you could help us understand the difference between what optimization brings to workflow and what pre-flighting brings to workflow.
Yeah, even taking one step back, the way that I've kind of coined or kind of the tagline that I think helps mentally to think about optimization versus automation, and which gets you efficiency, is that optimization really just makes the workflow simpler, whereas automation makes the workflow touch-free and faster. But it's really that you need to combine both to have the best workflow that you possibly can. Now, when it comes to what is the difference between optimization and pre-flighting, and are they the same thing? From my perspective as an analyst, I kind of contend that they're not the same thing. So if you think about historically with pre-flighting, and even though it's built into the name, right? So if you think about an airline pilot, they have a pre-flight checklist that they're literally going down, ticking every box to make sure everything's in functional order, that they're not going to have any surprises when you get up in the air and all that kind of stuff. Pre-flighting from a file perspective in our industry is very much the same way. There's this huge laundry list of checks that you can make on a file to basically examine it. And depending upon the tool that you're using, it can maybe automatically correct some of those things, but in many cases, it's just waving a flag saying, hey, there's this issue. You might need to do something about it before it continues. So that's kind of pre-flighting. Now, if we transition to optimization, it does a lot of that same checking, but what it does on top of that is it has rules built in on how to actually handle those situations to create that lightweight file. So there's rules in it on how to handle fonts. There's rules in it on how to handle color spaces. There's rules in it on how to handle X objects. And often you can change those settings based upon and create different workflows, if you will, based on the type of work that you're trying to process. So you may have one optimization technique for transactional bills and statements, and you'd have a different optimization technique for commercial print booklet work.
So one of the things that I look at when I'm looking at workflows is I'm looking for all those bottleneck places, all those things that can go wrong. And it seems that if you've got an optimization opportunity with, especially with images that are oversized for the purpose of the product, I know a lot of direct mail and commercial work begins life created for offset devices for CTP. And when you try to just airlift them over the transom to digital print, yeah, a 2500 DPI image in your file can do terrible things to your throughput and really create bottlenecks. So in the case of Ready PDF, that's a toggle that you have available to you to help you get things down sampled, which for me, it seems it must make things more efficient overall to be able to get all the right objects in the right space, and fonts in the right formats. Make sure you got the right kinds of fonts. You don't have the same font embedded 200 times or
Exactly.
200,000 times, right? Which wouldn't be. So I can see where that would bring a lot of value to the process. If you start thinking about how this file optimization works, do you normally see file optimization as part of an overall automated workflow, or is this a step people would tend to do manually?
Well, I think you have the flexibility to really do it either way. Because I'm always looking at it from an efficiency angle, I always want it to be an integral part of an automated workflow, just one step on the subway path, if you want to think of it that way. But I think you can do it either way. Circling back to your comment, I know that in the industry, even there's been more conversation lately that had kind of died for a long time about kind of the resolution of images and so forth. and so was thinking about, okay, well, why are we talking about that again? Because anybody in the industry for any length of time, it's kind of the 2x rule, right? So if and I'm going to like commercial days where you basically a 300 line screen, then you need or excuse me, 150 line screen, you need a 300 DPI image and nothing more, because it's not going to do any good except slow down your processing.
Right.
But then it dawned on me that, hey, you know what? Everybody mostly that's creating these files, unless we're designing it inside of the print shop ourselves, they don't know this. They're from outside of the industry. They just don't know the rules to use. So what's easier? Is it easier to try and train them on how to do a different action, or is it easier for us to control it on the back end? And for me, I think that answer is the latter part.
You wind up in a situation where adding a tool like a ready PDF for optimization allows you to not have to have difficult conversations with your clients, and can lead to a more harmonious customer relationship when all is said and done.
Absolutely.
It's kind of interesting. So one of the other things that I found interesting about Ready PDF is that it had a couple of toggles in there that I thought a lot of people might not think of in terms of optimization. I like its obfuscation feature. And so for those who don't speak obfuscation, that's basically just the ability to basically take a black marker and mark out all the personal data that you don't want someone to see, except in this case, Ready PDF can do it for you. And I thought, from an efficiency standpoint, especially if you're sending things out for approval and review, but you really don't want to be breaking any, privacy laws by sharing customer data, or even, trying to get a problem solved by, you need to send something back to a vendor to look at, but you don't want them to see the private data. I like the idea of having a tool that'll not only optimize it, but it'll give me this extra little feature in there that'll make my life a little bit better and make it faster for me to deliver files out without exposing client data, which is such a no-no right now.
You're right. I mean, there's all these interesting use cases that have cropped up around optimization, and this always, I don't know why, but I go to like a James Bond kind of spy scenario when I hear I can't even say it, but basically for your eyes only kind of a thing, right? And but you're right. I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to do with the file and who on the receiving and how they need to actually interact and work with it. With that particular type of technique, though, I think in many industries that we touch as the print service provider, it's going to be more critical going forward, because every other day now you're reading about some kind of security breach, or you're reading about some kind of ransomware attack. And there's only so much you can do to play offense and try and just circumvent and kind of deal with that up front. But inevitably, it's going to probably find its way. It can't find its way in, right? You can only play offense so much. So this is another way in your arsenal, though, to kind of play more of an offensive role and kind of mitigate some issues there.
It also speaks to efficiency, because I've lived in shops where that time came where we had to send a print out to someone, and the only way to do it was to run it against a fake database. And then you're always suspicious that if you run it against the Mickey Mouse or the Donald Duck database, that it's not going to have the same characteristics as the original data. So the problem you're trying to report might not really be there, and it just really opens up a whole other can of worms. Whereas in this case, you're actually still using the real file, but Ready PDF gives you the chance to use your big Sharpie kind of automatically. So from an automation and efficiency standpoint, I just like it as a feature. Thanks so much for helping us understand, PDF optimization in terms of workflow efficiency. This has been a good piece of discussion.
Absolutely, always is.